Okay, so let's continue with our Git series, and in that series, currently we are doing the GitHub actions. So today we will look out the reusing workflow. But before that, let's do some very quick revision what we have did till now. So we created .github folder, and we created the workflows folder, and all the workflows we created should have the either the .yml, yml, or YAML file. So workflow should have the YAML file. And in the first video we see the if we have to write the workflow from the scratch, what could be the basic syntax, because the workflow should have some job and job should have some steps, right? So we the name of the workflow, the run name, and the when the workflow should be triggered. So like workflow dispatch, like workflow dispatch means we need to trigger it manually. So it could be on pull request or a push request, right? So we define some jobs like, okay, there is only one job in that, and that job has multiple steps. So step has name, and if we want to execute our own script, then we can use the run. And if we want to use some third party, then we have to use uses. And if we have to use multiple uh, like uh, commands or multiple script, then we have to use the pipe symbol or symbol. So this is like the first video which we have covered. Then we have seen, because sometimes we need to define some variables. So we see, okay, how we can define the workflow level environment variable. So like this, and how we can define the job level environment variable, how we can define the steps level environment variable, how we can access it. So we can access using dollar. Okay, then we see like how we can define the variables based upon the environment. So in the previous video variables, these are not based upon the environment, these are the repository variables. So these are the based upon the environment, like dev environment, q, and the prod. So dev has some different value, q has different value, prod has some different value. So we created three environments in the GitHub UI. And how to access that? The normal way is dollar, but this hostname value from come from this environment, dev environment. So we created three environment. And then we see some more like a day-to-day life for third party GitHub actions, how we can upload the artifacts, how we can set up the Python. So we can use the upload artifact. Then we see, okay, there is a download artifact option as well. Then in the next video we see the expression status. So sometimes if the some test code failed, so and still we want to execute the another job, then we can put some conditions. Okay, if do we want to execute that, or do we want to execute always? Do we want to execute this step only on success condition? Do we want to execute this only on the failed condition? Then we see some other things like the timeout thing, because sometimes we figure it out, some job take some longer, but we can decide, okay, this job should be executed in 1 minute. If this job will not execute in 1 minute, then it should get cancelled automatically. Along with that, we see the continue on error. Sometimes we know, okay, this step is going to fail, or this job is going to be failed. So continue on error can be put on step level and as well as the job level. So if we did that, even though if this step is going to be fail, but still the next step is going to be executed, or this job is going to be fail, still the next job is going to be executed. Then we see the strategy matrix. So strategy matrix means we are running some tests here, right? But I want to run my test on three Python version, 3.9, 3.10. So earlier we are setting the Python version by hard coding 3.11. So we can define our strategy matrix. So we can define some list, okay, 3.9, 3.10, or 3.11. Then we can dynamically populate here our version. Similarly, for the operating system, if we want to run our on Windows, Ubuntu, or Mac, we can define some strategy matrix here. Under the strategy, then we have the matrix. Then we can do that. So we see that. All right. So in this video, we are going to cover about the reusing workflow. So what is the reusing workflow? So reusing workflow means to avoid some duplication. As an example, so let me create another workflow, reusable workflow, and it should be YAML file. All right. So let me go to the expression status, and not expression status, maybe some other. Yeah, expression status is fine. So let me copy that. Or maybe, So if you see this thing, like continue on error and like, and in this, like if you see my workflow number 6, so in this workflow I am executing this unit test. All right. So in the seventh one, I'm just I what I did is I just copy paste the unit test, and I need to execute some other jobs as well. But I unnecessarily like copy paste this thing. All right. So if there is any change in future, then I have to change in this workflow, and I have to change here workflow. So when this thing is common, when this unit test is common, when this unit test is common, so why can't I like define in like some common workflow? So let's create a some common workflow file as well. Common workflow.yml file. Okay, we can define the name common workflow. Okay, now the other workflow, if you noticed, we have some workflow dispatch. All right, but common workflow will not going to be trigger, can be trigger, but like for the time being in this video, what we are saying is why we are like define some common workflow to avoid some duplication. So this code, like I have repeated in this file, this code I have repeated in this file, but instead what I want is I can just remove the code from here, and I can remove the code from this file as well, and I can define in some other file as well. So, and I can use that file, I can use that file uh, at place of this step. So at place of this step, I can use this file by giving some path of that file. All right. So basically, this file will going to be executed on workflow dispatch. No, it is going to be executed on workflow call. So even if you see here, so there is a workflow call. So for a workflow to be reusable, the values on must include workflow call. So this is the official documentation, and it is mentioned creating a reusable workflow. So we can create a in the GitHub.workflows folder, which is fine, and the event should be on workflow call. The same thing we did is we created a file in that .github workflows, and the event should be on workflow call, because on workflow call means whenever any workflow is going to be triggered, and when any workflow is going to call, then only this workflow will, sorry, then only this workflow going to be called. All right. Now what I can do is I can copy paste this thing here. Right. So I like so in the common workflow, I define a jobs unit test, which is run on Ubuntu, and then checkout and all those things. Right. Okay. Now in the reusable workflow, so let me copy paste everything. So let me rename the file name 8. So now what we have to do is, so instead of repeating this thing, because this is the workflow, and in this workflow I want to execute unit test, and then I want to execute some second job, and I then want to execute third job. But this job unit test is defined in my workflow, so I don't want to write this thing here. All right, I don't want to write this thing here. What I want to do is I want to mention uses. What should I use? I want to use this workflow. So let's get the path of this workflow. So uses. So we copy paste this path, but the syntax should be one more dot and then slash. There should be one more above directory. So now we defined here. Okay, so these jobs, and the job name is unit test, and it should use this workflow. That's it. And now everything remains same, second job and third job. So let's try to run if there is any error or not. Now go to the actions. So now we have, mm, okay, let me, I forgot to, let me correct the name. Update workflow name, git push. So let me refresh it. So now we have the reusable workflow and the common workflow. So if you click on the common workflow, you could see I can't manually trigger it, right? Because like in other case, reusable workflow, I could see this run workflow action. Why? Because I have like have the event workflow dispatch, but in this common workflow, I don't have the workflow dispatch action, but I have the workflow call. So that's why I don't have that option. So let's trigger the reusable workflow, run workflow, and refresh it. So now you could see the unit test and the unit test job. So unit test is the name of the job which I write, and then job name from the unit test there is the one from the common workflow is executing here, and then second job and the third job uh, from the this workflow. So basically, we are reusing the workflow. So even if you go to the official documentation and if you go on the top, it is clearly mentioned learn how to avoid duplication while creating a workflow rather than copying and pasting from one workflow to another. You can make a workflow reusable and you can accessible workflow. And how to do that? So we have to use the workflow uh, call as an option. So this is like one example, because till now what I am doing is till now what I am doing is every time I have to run the unit test, every time I have to, like, I am copy pasting everything, unit test, unit test, unit test every time, right? So why can't I just create a reusable workflow? So whenever I have to run the unit test, I can just use that particular workflow. And if there is any update, I don't need to update in all the files. I can just update the common workflow and that's it, right? So currently, if you noticed, so second job failed. I think we have manually failed it, which is fine. I think let me cross check it. Yeah, we have manually failed it, which is fine, because we in this video we are going to see whether like we are able to use the reusable workflow or not. But let's suppose the common workflow has one more step. Not one more step, but we have one more job. Let's suppose. So let me take some. Okay, second job, runs on Ubuntu latest steps, name, checking the status of the job, run. Let me copy paste this thing. Okay, so let's suppose the common workflow has one job unit test and the second job as well. So, and instead of unit test, let me do that. Unit test from common workflow. Update one more job. So if I go to the actions and reusable workflow and let's trigger it, run workflow, refresh it. So there is some error. Let's see. The second job depends on unknown job unit test. Okay. Okay, because here we have the correct dependencies. And let's try to run it. So now you could see I am using both the jobs, unit test and the second job from that workflow. So what I want to say is because we mention the whole workflow here. So doesn't matter like whatever the number of jobs you are going to mention because like there is no dependency. That's why like it is running in the parallel, right? So doesn't matter like how many jobs you want to reuse. Just mention here and you can use it. I don't think like we can use the particular job. So as an example, in the common workflow, we have two jobs. One is unit test and one is second job. And I only want to use the unit test job and I don't want to use the second job. So I don't think like if there is any way we can use only the unit test job and I don't want to use the second job. Because if we mention workflow DML, it is going to use everything like what is mentioned in the common workflow. Basically, initially it is going to trigger this. That's it. So that's it. That's the end of the video. And you can also like try this. This is like a very good option because in our generally day-to-day life, we generally don't do just copy and paste and whatever we feel because in our actual project we have multiple workflows and whatever we feel this is the unnecessary step which we are carrying over across all the workflow. So just pop it out from all the workflow and put in some common workflow. So that's it. That's the end of the video. Thank you.